Faut parler, hein. Moi, je travaille.
Voyez, voilà.
There was a legend that whoever drank from the skull of Nostradamus would inherit his incredible powers. But for 200 years, his grave remained undisturbed, because the legend also said that whoever did so would immediately die.
Et vous? Aussi. Oh, c'est Robert.
One night, at the height of the French Revolution, 3 drunken soldiers set out to test the legend.
Nous travaillons. Vous le jouez.
It was not the skeleton that suddenly sobered the soldiers, but the plaque around its neck, with the date May 1791, which could only have been placed there at the time of burial in 1566. Nostradamus had predicted 200 years before the exact date when his body would be dug up.
Nostradamus. Nostradamus.
Ah non, Robert, non, non, non.
Oh non, mon grand-père, tu es stupide.
The shot that killed that soldier was fired from the riot of the surrounding revolution. A stray bullet, a freak accident that fulfilled the legend of Nostradamus. Nostradamus. What kind of a man was he, who predicted the date of the desecration of his own grave, whose predictions were used as propaganda during World War II? A man who has accurately predicted events over the last 400 years, from the French Revolution to the Kennedys, on into the future, even to a Third World War, and eventually the total destruction of the world as we know it. What then are we to make of his predictions? If they're true of the past, what of the future? Tonight, we would like to introduce you to the Prophecies of Nostradamus.
After the desecration of his grave in 1791, the remains of Nostradamus were transferred and buried here in the wall of the church at Salon. This his final resting place is only 40 kilometers from the small village of Saint-Remy de Provence, where he was born in the year 1503. His ancestry was Jewish, but his immediate family had converted to Christianity. Although his father was a doctor, they led a simple life in this small house, nestling in the shadow of the church. His grandfather, also a doctor, began to educate him at an early age in medicine and the classics, but more significantly, in the ancient science of the stars, astrology. With this rich heritage of learning behind him, Nostradamus moved to the world-famous university city of Montpellier, where he studied medicine at the academy. Here, he amazed his fellow students and teachers with his lectures on astrology. He expounded his theory that the Earth was round, revolving around the sun, 100 years before Galileo. But plague, the dreaded curse of the 16th century, spread across Europe, and Nostradamus, when he graduated as a doctor at the age of 22, threw himself into the struggle against it. Oddly enough, he was most successful in combating the plague with a simple yet unorthodox cure of clean air and unpolluted water. He achieved amazing results with what we now know to be common sense, and his fame as a healer soon spread, and afflicted towns from all over Europe sent for him. But his own wife and 2 daughters he could not save. After they died, Nostradamus was left alone and wandered aimlessly through Europe. Although he continued to practice medicine, his attention turned more and more to the study of astrology and the occult. It was during this time that Nostradamus first began to experience his visions of the future. He returned to the south of France and settled here in the small town of Salon, where he remarried and made his permanent home. Seclusion of his study, he began to record his amazing visions. Soon, stories circulated about him, earning him the reputation of being at first an eccentric, and then a mystic.
On one occasion, he was invited to a banquet where his host attempted to trick him. He told Nostradamus they would be eating pig that evening. He said he had a black pig and a white pig, and he invited his guest to predict which of the 2 they would eat. Nostradamus said, "The black one." The man then went to the kitchen and instructed the cook to prepare the white pig. Later that evening, as they were enjoying their meal, he again asked Nostradamus to say which pig they were eating. He was told the black one, and triumphantly he denounced his guest's ability as a prophet. When Nostradamus quietly insisted that it was indeed the black pig, the man summoned the cook and asked him to declare which of the 2 pigs they were eating. The cook said that while he'd been preparing the white pig, it had suddenly been snatched from the table and devoured by the dogs. So he'd been forced to serve the black pig.
But Nostradamus had embarked on something more important than the entertainment of the nobility. In Salon, he set up an intensive study of what was now his life's major work.
Seated at night in my secret study, alone reposing over the brass tripod. A slender flame leaps out of the solitude, making me pronounce that which is not in vain. Divining rod in hand is put in the middle of the branches. With water moisten the limb and the foot. Struggling fear, sleeves trembling, heavenly splendor. The divine seats himself nearby.
His writings clearly show that Nostradamus was both able to see and to hear these events, almost as if he were present in some future time. Was this the work of God or of the devil? For this was the age of witchcraft. The 16th century was a time when superstition made men strike out at the unusual, the odd, and the eccentric. And countless innocent people were tried, convicted, and sentenced to horrible tortures and death. For such a man, for any man, to announce predictions now tumbling before him was to invite disaster. So Nostradamus began to write down his predictions in such a way that they would be preserved for posterity and survive fear, suspicion, and destruction through ignorance. He chose a four-lined rhyming verse, known as the quatrain. Writing in his native French, he confused the verse with Latin, Greek, and even anagrams. So the truth would have to be unraveled, interpreted, and deciphered.